Hey everybody, it's Skylar here with another episode of TMP, the Musical Puppy, and today I'm here to introduce the next episode of my crash course on how to read music, and today I'm going to talk about ledger lines. So we already learned about how to read the staff in terms of notes for all the different clefs you could be using depending on what instrument you're learning. I just decided to default to treble clef here because for the purposes of this video, but this of course applies to any staff. So you have like the lines and spaces, but not every instrument is only confined to those notes. Sometimes you got to go a little higher, and sometimes you got to go a little lower. So we do this with legend lines. Pretty basic. It's basically just extending the staff above and below. So let's say you have like a note here, but you're going to go up. Well, you can also write on top of the staff. That'd be, in this case, G for treble clef. But of course, your note may vary. But let's say you want to go one more up. There would be a little line here, and you'd have your note. And it would just keep going up like that. So F, G, A, and then B, C, D, and so on. And this can, of course, go infinitely. One thing that you might see in music to prevent like excessive ledger lines is something called, it'll be written 8VA. It's officially pronounced as ottava, which is Italian for octave, or eighth, ottava. And basically what that means is if you see this written, so let's say you have, again I'm just defaulting to treble clef here, but it can be anything. So you have some notes here. Just any kind of sequence here. And the music might have this written. So that would mean that it's written an octave above. So it would be, I'll redraw it down here. That's actually a bad idea. I'll redraw it over here. That way I have enough room to do so. So you would have this. There's another one. Then it goes up one more. Okay, so this is what you would actually play, but this is what would be actually written. And sometimes this is written to make it easier for the composer or the printers to print music more cleanly, especially on a score where a bunch of the instruments are kind of stuck together, so it might get a little messy. For some instruments, this is not a great way to write though, especially a lot of wind instruments and string instruments. Just for psychological reasons, like if you see this, it's kind of hard for your brain to think this, because often, fingerings and, hand positions are not the same across the board for every note. But like if you are on a piano or a harp or something, then this is fine, because you would just move your hand over an octave, so it's a lot easier. But you will still often see it even for those instruments, but just know that if you're a composer, this is not the best way to write, at least in parts. Like if you want to write this in the score, that's perfectly fine, because the conductor won't need to have that mental vision of the higher notes. But for the player's parts, it's probably best to write it this way if you can. Just a note. So what happens when you no longer want this? Well, the dashed line will often indicate where the notes are, but alternatively, instead of the dashed line, you could just have the 8VA written, and then let's say you want the ottava to end. So right above the note, the composer will write loco. This means you'll play it as written. So some more uncommon things you might see. So you could have 8 ottava. You could also have an ottava bassa, which would be written 8VB, which means, and usually this will be for bass clef, although this is not quite as common. So you have some notes here, but you want them written down the octave. So you'll do similarly, just just similarly, but you'll have one octave below. That's a little less common, but it's possible. Even less common, you'll have quindicesima. Sorry. Quindicesima, which should be, I'll write that a little cleaner, which should be a little 15 MA, which means 2 octaves. 15, the 15th note above the written. That's not very common at all. I don't think I've ever even seen that, but it does exist, and its bass counterpart, quindicesima bassa. So that's a lot less common. So this was just a little lesson on how to recognize notes that are outside of the little comfort zone of just the 5 lines and the 4 spaces. You have like the little space below and a little space above the lines, and you have ledger lines, and you also have the option of ottava or ottava bassa. So that's how you'll know you'll play above or below the range that you see written on the page. Just so that was a pretty quick little lesson, nothing too difficult there, but it's still important to recognize nonetheless. So thanks for watching. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them down below. As usual, if you ask any questions that I will not be addressing in a future video, I will be glad to make a video or work it into one of the existing videos. So please do leave your questions, and please come back for the next episode where we'll cover the next topic.